It's a really interesting time to be a woman in B2B, especially if you're not in sort of your first 5 or 10 years of your career.
I've seen a lot of bad behavior. I do still coach women because we don't have to tolerate that kind of behavior anymore. I have a confidence now that I wouldn't have had 15 or 20 years ago.
What I think consistently has happened for women in these spaces is that they've had to work twice as hard for half the credit. And a big part of getting more credit and more opportunity was building the relationships inside the organization.
Honestly has very much spoken to me as a leader because I have to change my behaviors too, and they're ultimately more healthy for me, and I can be a better representation of what good leadership can be and what good female leadership can be as well.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. This is our inaugural Women in B2B eCommerce podcast episode. So I'm excited to be here with Sam Schwartz, Marta Dalton, and Kristina Harrington. All familiar faces and names in this B2B e-commerce world, but I'm excited to talk about their sort of history, how they got started, how they got into this space of B2B e-commerce, and what they're excited for in the future. It's a really interesting time to be a woman in B2B, especially if you're not in sort of your first 5 or 10 years of your career. It's been male dominated for a long time, but we're seeing more women entering the trades, more women going into college and getting advanced degrees, more women entering the workforce. So sort of whether you like it or not, the dynamics of what makes up the teams and leadership and business structures is going to be changing in the near future and sort of long future, I would expect. So I'm really excited to hear their stories. So let's start with just a quick introduction of where you are and how you got into sort of this space that you're in. Kris, do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll kick us off. It's really wonderful to be here with all of you guys on this inaugural show. So thanks for the opportunity, Sarah. I am Kristina Harrington, the CEO of Gen Alpha Technologies. We are a company based in just outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We are a SaaS provider of e-commerce for equipment and aftermarket parts organizations. Honestly, I started my career in B2B in manufacturing. So I've been in and out of manufacturing since I left high school, really. I started in the warehouse. I went off to the Navy. I came back and went back to work for the manufacturer. I worked on a piece of equipment, several different pieces of equipment. When I finally decided to go back to school, I went and worked for an actual manufacturing company as a financial analyst. And it was the first opportunity that I had to start working with an ERP system and understanding the fundamentals of what data is needed for all functions of the business to operate. I started selling equipment and parts in that career, which took me around the world. So I had just this incredible opportunity. But as I was transitioning into my larger career in sales, digital transformation, specifically online selling, was just starting to take off, really in the retail space, not so much in B2B or the selling of equipment and parts online. It was still a little too early for that. But we saw that there was an opportunity to make life easier for our customers. And by adopting digital strategies, we were really able to make it easier for customers to do business with us. And I was kind of on the leading edge of that. And that's what pulled me into the technology space. So really just selling equipment and parts, but then, going through the process of how selling has changed. And now with the advent of AI, I think we're in another transformation of the way things will be done, but that's really how I got here. So thank you.
Yeah, really interesting. So really starting in manufacturing.
Yes. Yeah. I always say manufacturing chose me. I won an award in high school from a local manufacturer, so I would encourage companies to do this, where they gave it to the female and male student athlete of the year. and they invited us with our parents into a very special dinner. They had a keynote speaker. And I, after they had chosen me for that, I chose them to work with and work for and really build my career around that. So if you're thinking about how to attract women or young women, I think that's a story that should be shared for sure.
That's very cool. That's very cool. I won a McDonald's award. It wasn't as glamorous. It wasn't as interesting. Marta, do you want to give us your backstory?
Yeah, sure. I'm Marta Dalton. I've been in B2B for coming up on 20 years. I've spent most of my career with distributors. So I kind of tripped into it. I was already into e-commerce, but more on the B2C side for a couple of years, and found my way to Wesco Distribution, which is headquartered in my hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They were looking for somebody to build up their e-commerce department and their tech stack. So stepped into that role, spent the next several years learning a lot while building that up. It was probably the largest implementation, even till now, almost the largest implementation I think I've run. And from there on, just kind of kept going with distributors. I ended up in the CPG side of things. So I built B2B eCommerce in North America for Coca-Cola through our bottler network, where bottler is essentially synonymous with distributor. And then for Unilever, globally in about 35 different countries. So supplying all of our distributor partners and enabling their technology and their services. And one of the things I've really loved about doing this is that in B2B e-commerce, you have all of the fun components in an e-commerce world. You've got technology and marketing and operations. So all of these different things, there's new challenges to deal with every day. And I think in the B2B side, it's fun because there's so much additional complexity. There's multiple prices, there's different kinds of accounts, there's customer specific SKUs that you're not going to see everywhere else. So it's not as straightforward as B2C. And I think I've really enjoyed managing all of that complexity, learning more about how to put technology together with people, with the sales team. And so it's been a really interesting ride to work with so many different technologies and organizations over the years.
Yeah, that's really cool. I heard someone say like that B2C used to be the model for B2B, but B2B is actually more complex and more interesting. So B2B should be the model for B2C, because if you can solve all of the B2B complexity, like you can easily apply it to B2C. Kind of interesting. All right, Sam.
Yeah. So I'm Sam Schwartz. I too have been in distribution for most of my career. I did a little stint in manufacturing over the last 3 or 4 years. But I really got into this a little bit by accident. Way back when I started, I was just looking for something new. And I had gotten a call and was like, great, this sounds like a job. I love it. And it was with McMaster Carr. And it ended up being way more than I ever would have imagined, as far as like the importance to me and like what I've learned and setting a foundation for what it means to be successful in the B2B space and the digital space. So from there, I went to Zorro for quite some time, and then to ISN, which is more on the automotive distribution side, and then went to a precaster, a manufacturer precaster, for a few years to help with their digital strategy. And really along the way, had this really unique and incredible opportunity to just learn the basis of digital, which I don't even think was a word back then, from the ground up. So anything from the importance of your data model and taxonomy, and how important clean data is at McMaster, and presentation and user experience, to building out a marketplace program and learning in depth things like analytics and user experience design and merchandising in my next few jobs. And I feel really lucky to be at Midland Industries right now as their Chief Digital Strategy Officer, building out a more unified strategy for all their markets and all their customers moving forward. So really happy to be here. Of course, happy to be back in industrial distribution, which I'm not sure are words that anyone has ever said before, but I really love it, and I'm really excited to talk to you all today.
So I'm curious, like, especially Marta and Samantha, like Sam, getting into this sort of secondarily, like how did you learn about what your job needed to be? And Chris too, as you moved into digital, how did you learn about these things? Because it's not like Harvard Business Review is like publishing like reports. There's no like documentation of like best practices. There's more now, but like there hasn't been for a long time, like just education and information. So who were your like mentors, or how did you figure out how to do your jobs well?
I mean, you're right. I still say like you can't go to undergrad for e-commerce. Like there's no such thing. I mean, I was very reliant on, my leaders along the way, and they provided. I definitely had a few in particular who, kind of had the EQ and took the time to mentor certain people along the way about what the right thing is to do is, and teaching them why things are important. So whether that was data quality or, when I got to Zorro, I had a specific person that I worked for a really long time who, we were all figuring out e-commerce anyway, right? Like we didn't learn it from anywhere. It was a lot of like, hey, you have to just test and learn and figure this out and talk to other people and be observant, and where you can measure, So I think a lot of it was just having people to model that sort of like voracious learning behavior. And now there's a lot more experts, and there's a lot more, groups where we can learn from each other, especially at like a senior leadership level. But it was a few people who were willing to kind of give a little bit of time, and I think helped me grow into somebody who was, very curious about things and who wasn't afraid to just test something out.
Interestingly enough, most of my career, I've worked for people who weren't on the digital side. So I think what worked out best for me is that I was given a lot of autonomy to test and learn and fail, and that would be okay. So even though I don't know that I could point to early leaders that were maybe mentoring in the digital space, it was more about a how to think and how to work. So getting the mentorship and the EQ, as Sam says, to recognize that this is a place where in 2010, not that many companies were doing digital in B2B. And therefore, sure, we can try and look at what's out there, but for the most part, it's going to be learning what fits for us, because our back-end systems and our customers and our sales teams are not the exact same as anybody else's. And I think having that mindset instilled in me from the beginning has been extremely helpful, because even now, the companies that we're in right now, there's still a lot of testing and learning. Nobody's going to do an exact B2B implementation the same way you're going to. They're not going to have the same needs, requirements, et cetera, training. So how do you find what fits for your org, and getting a leadership level that's comfortable with that? I remember presenting to the board in probably 2011 about the internet and how this was going to be important. And it's funny to look back on now, but getting people excited about, yes, buying online. Yes, it's going to be a thing. No, Amazon's not going anywhere. And having a leadership team that embraced that and said, okay, we don't get it, but that's okay that we don't get it. We can see that this is going to be important. So tell us what you need, learn what you need, do what you need to do. And some things are going to work and some things aren't. So I think more so than just specific mentors for me, it's just been that mindset and finding places where that's pervasive. And even during the interview process, I've asked and said, hey, when you think about e-commerce, what role does it play in your organization? How does leadership react? And it's been one of the key things I've taken across jobs to make sure that I'm stepping into an organization that's welcoming of that, because this industry is likely to never be a place where you're going to walk out with a bachelor's in e-commerce or a master's in digital marketing. And certainly some of those things do exist, but it's never going to be the exact fit. There's always going to be on the job learning.
Yeah. I really connected with what Sam said about curiosity and Marta said about autonomy, because I think when you're solving problems for customers and you get really curious about how those problems can, how you can over time change the way you solve problems and improve your processes, improve the information, and improve the delivery of information to your clients, that's kind of how I got thrown into learning what to do. Because I'm a part of an organization where we are the SaaS provider, I also got to sit next to technology people. So after sitting with customers, observing the problems and the challenges they have, taking that back to technology, IT-driven people who understand how to solve problems with code and write the things and create the things that are needed. So that was very transformational for me. If you would have asked me, 30 years ago, if I ever thought I would be a CEO of a technology company, I would have said, hell no, just because I wouldn't have believed I wouldn't have known what to do. But I think having that curiosity and leaders above you who give you the ability to go after, because like the other ladies here, many organizations don't know how to do this. They don't know how to solve the problems. We're all exploring, at least in the past years, we were all exploring how to do this together. And we are creating something new. So if you didn't have the autonomy to go do things and make change and try things, then your products wouldn't evolve. And ultimately, you wouldn't help your customers. So, I've had some tremendous allies, some amazing coaches. Most of the allies have been males, and there just weren't females in the role where you would say, if you can see it, you can be it. But I think that's part of the change that's happening today, and I'm excited to be a part of that.
Yeah, that leads me right to my next question, which was, what was it like being a woman in industrial distribution or manufacturing? There's certainly not a degree in like e-commerce for industrial distribution. I don't see, I don't think that's happening. But so what was it like being a woman, like in the early days? Like what was good? What was not so good?
Well, I was thinking about this, and I think that there was a lot of learning by what not to do. Like I think when I think about some of the environments that I was in where they were very male dominated, and this might sound a little cheesy to say, but just like there was a very like kind of like male energy there where it was, meetings were very aggressive, and there was very little kind of like, I've definitely been told like, hey, leave feelings out of it. Like, don't be emotional, that kind of thing. I think all of us have gotten that feedback, especially earlier in our careers. And I saw the women leaders around me taking that feedback to heart. Right. And so there was a lot of just kind of like cold, I better get this right, or whatever, some guy is going to take my job. Like that feeling and that attitude was very prevalent early on in my career with other women leaders. And like we were saying, like there was no one really to like look up to and be like, oh, that woman who's in a higher leadership position than me, she's acting differently, I can do that too. So I think like that was one of those things where it's like there was not a ton of people to really learn from. And even like business coaches, sometimes some of them would say like, you just have to play that game. The men are in charge, just kind of to play their game. They think you're supposed to act this way, so just do it so you can get ahead. And it was like, that doesn't feel good either, So that's, when I look back at the beginning stages of my career, it's like we were giving each other this really weird advice about how to be successful. And I think those are the things that kind of lead to like burnout and feeling like you don't belong, because you can't really lead the way that inside you that you can be a leader and make change. So I don't know if anyone else had a similar experience like that.
Yeah, I would say the good thing is that when I was on a team meeting or an away site, typically I had the bathroom all to myself. That was pretty great. But other than that, I don't know that I have a lot of positive stories about my early time in distribution and manufacturing. So, for example, I remember when I got engaged, and I won't name companies, but I got engaged and I went back and I told my boss, and he said, "Oh, are you going to quit your job?" Yes, this is 2010, and I have a bachelor's and a master's from a well-known university, and I found a husband, and I'm good now. You wouldn't expect that would still happen in this day and age, and I really hope now in 2025 it's not still happening, but who knows, because this wasn't that long ago. So I've seen a lot of bad behavior. I've seen a lot of male-dominated exercises in rooms and things that, taking all the men in a department out for an event, for example, and leaving the women behind. Again, you wouldn't think these things happen, but unfortunately they still do, even within the past decade. So I'm hoping that the industry has gotten rid of a lot of those types of things that may have happened to me in my early career. I do still coach women to keep an eye out for making relationships in their organizations. To in this day and age, also, I think we have the chance to be more vocal. So where I might not have spoken up about that 15 years ago, it'd be a lot easier to do so now, because we don't have to tolerate that kind of behavior anymore. And we shouldn't, because if we don't stand up, especially those of us who are further along in our careers, I have a confidence now that I wouldn't have had 15 or 20 years ago. And I would feel perfectly comfortable challenging anyone, even with a C in their title, on that kind of behavior in a way that I wouldn't have done back then. So I've seen a lot more women events. I see more women in general, at whether it's at conferences or it's in the office or it's at the VP and C level. So I feel that the space has become a lot more welcoming to women, and that some of the training and mentorship opportunities. I was in a specific mentoring program at Coca-Cola that was very welcoming, specifically for women, and they were looking to get women on the distribution bottler side too. So I've seen a lot of positive movement in the space. I've seen benefits to having women connect in our own spaces to help bolster each other's up, to overcome some of the bad behavior, and to maybe help us heal from any of the past interactions that we've had. And then I've seen it becoming much more mainstream to have women in these leadership positions, which I think is also shining a light on anything that might have happened previously.
Yeah, great stories. I would imagine I'm a little bit older than Sam and Marta. So, so it might have been just a little different, but these stories very much ring true. What I think consistently has happened for women in these spaces is that they've had to work twice as hard for half the credit. And a big part of getting more credit and more opportunity was building the relationships inside the organization, so that you had allies and advocates that would help you pursue the career that you want. There were women in administrative roles in the manufacturing organizations that I started my B2B career with, but I didn't want that for myself. So being driven and wanting to be I wanted to be in the C-suite one day. I didn't go back to get an education just to be some administrative assistant. Not that there was anything wrong with that, or my career wasn't in HR. So the places where women were present was not where I wanted to be. And it was really, really important that I learned to use my voice and build relationships around me. I would say it wasn't always easy, just because it was a man's world. And the more you travel, a lot of the bigger opportunities that come in companies take you on travel adventures, right? So you're traveling, you're meeting with different groups, you're doing business in different countries or in different locations. And it does seem, when you're out of the workspace, that's where you can feel very isolated as a woman. So you have to kind of come up with your own barriers and boundaries for yourself. I think boundaries is probably the better word. And if you just don't feel like it's the right fit for you, don't participate in certain events. You don't have to, you can shine during the day and the workday and meeting teams and leading different activities and demonstrating your strengths. But if something makes you uncomfortable outside of the office, just don't participate. And that, as I got confidence in myself, that was something I did much more. And then I felt like maybe it was a little isolating, but I was keeping true to who I was. And I think I got a lot of respect for just not participating. So those are just some stories of the early times. But thankfully, I worked for great companies where they wanted to change the culture and they wanted to be a safe place and a place for women to grow. And I think that has been true for many companies in the last several years, but they have to work through that cultural change. And they really need the women in the organization to step up to help with that. And I think what the three of us here have done is just part of that change.
Yeah, I love what you said about boundaries, because I think that like it also extends to like, do I want to be in this organization, right? It's like if I think organizations now, or at least some of the organizations I've been a part of lately, are much more attuned to like people need boundaries at work. And I think that lends itself to women being more successful. So I think that like if we can create those boundaries and aren't just like giving and giving and giving of ourselves in the workplace, we can be more successful at the workplace. And it also just got me thinking about like these younger generations that are coming in. I mean, like Gen Z is, I've had a couple of folks on my team who are Gen Z, and they set such a good example of that, in my opinion, of like, this is work time, this is my time, and you don't get to have my time. And that honestly has very much spoken to me as a leader, because I have to change my behaviors too, and they're ultimately more healthy for me, and I can be a better representation of what good leadership can be and what good female leadership can be as well.
It's almost like this new generation has given us permission to do what we always wanted to do. Because I didn't really want to give up some of my evening time, but it was just part of the culture, right? And so now it's become a whole movement. And so certainly I agree, as leaders, we want to do it to make our teams happy, but secretly, in my heart of hearts, I'm like, yes, thank you for taking the stand that maybe we weren't able to. And now it's going to make life better for everybody, because I find it very difficult to believe that anybody would be truly excited about working 12 or 14 hours a day. And so if you have the opportunity to not attend something in the evening because you have kids, dog, other event, friends, whatever, nobody questions it in a way that maybe they would have 10 years ago. Now it's just, oh, okay, of course. Well, we'll see you at the next one.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about you all, but it also felt like you had to work extra hard to compensate for all of the lost soft relationships, right? Like the friendships that were formed in the extracurriculars, because I agree there is a lot of just boundary holding, but then you have to really compensate for the sort of soft relationships that you might be missing out of, either because they're mostly all men activities, or they're places that you don't want to be, or times that you don't want to give up time. And there's just a lot. For me, I felt a lot of personal pressure to be exceptionally good to compensate for some of that like softer relationship piece.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'd say I feel more comfortable bringing me and who I am as a whole person to work in a way that I didn't used to. I've been working remotely for 10 years now. And so I don't have time in the office to be around a water cooler and seeing people face to face. And there's certainly a unique set of challenges with that in building relationships with other people. But even though we are drawing lines for our personal time and our professional time, I also feel comfortable talking about, I'm a gamer, I'm a giant nerd, and there are things I wouldn't have talked about with colleagues 10 or 15 years ago because it would have seemed strange. It would have been on the fringe because I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We're a big sports town. Everybody's a sports person. So that was the topic of conversation. And now you're going to find more people who are into, whether it's gaming or different sports that other people don't play, card games, or it's unique collectors of coins, or who knows what. There's so many different fringe pastimes that people have taken on, and it has become completely acceptable to have those as part of your conversation at work. Whereas before I might have thought, okay, well, now I'm going to be judged because this is what I do in my free time. Instead, I'm going to find people who probably have some of the same pastimes. And that is what's enabled me to build personal relationships in a way that 15 years ago, the personal relationships were forged while going out drinking or going to a sports game. And I don't have to participate in those activities if I don't want to. I can find new ways to make these kinds of relationships. And in a remote environment, it's almost been a little easier because I can talk to so many different people. And you do have a chance to talk to people not in a big office. It's in a one-on-one where we all are right now. And I can talk to you about, as long as I know you well enough, we can have a conversation about our favorite video game. And it's not going to feel awkward because Jerry over in finance is not going to overhear me and wonder what in the world we're talking about.
That's really interesting. I find it's an interesting cultural moment because there is, with sort of the political moves away from DEI, some organizations are pulling out of like doing anything that has, women in the title. They're just nervous about what that is. Explicitly for businesses that contract with the government, right? That's pretty obvious. But I do feel like there's sort of in the air, there's sort of kind of like a uncertainty around using that word at a corporate level. At the same time, like I said at the beginning, like the demographics just feel like it's just shifting and it's just kind of changing no matter what happens. So I'm curious what you're seeing. I'm even seeing like women-owned businesses not recertifying as women-owned businesses because it's expensive and time-consuming, and there may not be a value to it. But I'm wondering what you think, like whether or not what the value is organizationally into your businesses of having spaces that are for women or whatever group.
Well, I would say it's important. Any group that's underrepresented, if you're a believer that everybody's input brings value and you're better as a team than as a single type of group, I think it's important to make sure that we're thinking about our business and the space that we create is a space for everyone. And if we want to attract the best talent and then therefore deliver the best goods and services to the communities and the companies in which we serve, we have a responsibility to hire, equally, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be the main focus, but it should be a part of, it should be an internal strategy for companies. And I think that the companies and the people that will thrive in the business will do better because of it. So I absolutely think it is important. I would just start with that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that when I think about serving my customer, just even from a business point of view, right? Like serving my customer means that there can't just be one type of understanding in the room. And I think that bringing in as many people as you can who represent different walks of life, different points of view, different experiences, like growing up experiences. I think that's really, really valuable, not only to how we then relate to our customers, our end customers, but how we relate to each other and strengthen our teams and our businesses. I think all of us can agree that having an echo chamber where we make decisions is probably the worst thing that we could do. And having just like broad perspective is a really, really wise thing to do from a business perspective. But from a personal perspective too, I think the more we can open up to those around us and understand them, the better leaders we will be, and the better talent I think we can attract, just like Chris was saying. So it's super important. And whether it's formal or not, I work for a pretty small company. So sometimes that formality is, we haven't gotten there yet, but I think that there's room for us as leaders, but, whether you're a woman in business or anybody else, I think that it's important for us to also like be open with the people who work for us and around us. And you can create those relationships in those safe spaces, even if you're working for a 10 person company. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Marta, what do you look like you have thoughts?
Yeah, I think that building connections has almost become easier. It's strange. I've had interesting conversations around the digital world and its ability to almost make us freer in creating those kinds of spaces, whether it's women only or certain subsets. I was talking about hobbies earlier. Um, to some extent, being remote gives you a sense of freedom, and it does maybe make you more comfortable in your own space. And some of us, I love being around people. I love the sound of my own voice. I love talking. I'm married to someone, my husband is very much an introvert. And I think that it's also made spaces more welcoming for introverts, because now you are not constantly overstimulated by people walking by you, coming to talk to you, just the office noise. And he's found that being in a home environment and being remote has been a lot better for him to focus and to enable him to connect to people, because it does feel more like a one-on-one in this kind of environment, as opposed to being in a team meeting. Even if you're in a team meeting and it's remote, you still feel more like a one-to-one. You're not surrounded by a room full of 20 people. So I found that in the remote world, it's almost helped us create more welcoming spaces, because you are able to get an environment that works best for you. And so whether it's connecting individually, or it's creating um, repeatable meetings, repeatable connections, and being able to build those bridges in a way that works best for you, rather than being thrown into an office environment or a culture that may not be a fit for you and how you work and how you like to be. It's almost more welcoming for people of all, not just different backgrounds, but also different neurodivergencies. So creating a welcoming space for people of all abilities, attributes, etc. It's a new way for people to find themselves in work environments and connect and find a way that works for them.
You also don't have to wear an outfit, and you don't have to be perceived as a person wearing an outfit. There is something about, I worked for a company that was all men, and I never wore like skirts. I always wore pants, because I was like, I can't be the only person in the room like wearing a skirt or a dress. There is something about not having to wear an outfit that is a little like, I don't know. It just changes the dynamic a little bit.
Nobody cares if I'm wearing slippers right now, because you don't know.
Right.
Great.
I hope you are wearing slippers.
Good. Well, because I have you all here, I'm curious. We didn't say we were going to talk about this, but I'm curious what your thoughts are about like the space of B2B e-commerce and what's changing in the next 5 years. The thing I've been asking myself is like, what are the tasks we're doing now that in 5 years will be like, I can't believe we're doing that. Like blowing on a CD player. Like what are the little actions that we're doing today? I think like copying, pasting from ChatGPT. Like what are the things we're doing today that in 5 years we're going to feel like, I can't believe we're doing that.
I mean, some of us are still writing business cases for why we should do e-commerce.
Nailed it.
So there's job security, you're saying.
Oh, thank you, Sam.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I would like to take the opportunity to say that my leadership believes in doing this, but I've written some business cases over the recent years that I'm like, why are we doing this? Don't we all agree?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm shocked that we all still seem to struggle with product data. I mean, that's been a topic for the entire time I've been in this industry, that getting data, cleaning data, managing our product data, syndicating it to distributors, it's been a problem forever. Now, everybody talks about AI, and when they say AI these days, I think they really mean large language models because those have been very popular. But we've all seen AI in different use cases throughout our careers, whether it's a product recommendation engine or it's marketing intelligence or segmentation, whatever it is. I think that some of these challenges that for whatever reason we have still not managed to overcome within 5 years, I hope to disappear. With the advent of all the different types of technologies that are out there in the AI world with large language models, I really hope we're not still talking about product taxonomy and categorization and attributes in 5 years, because we all should have figured that out. And I'm hoping that this is going to solve that problem, not just for the big guys that may have been challenged by it in a legacy system environment, which is where I spent most of my career, but also the small to mid-size, which just don't have the time, people, resources, et cetera, to deal with that. Because these are some of the foundational issues that make it very difficult to go into e-commerce. One of the things I remember telling people at Coca-Cola is that the double-edged sword of e-commerce is that it makes things very transparent. So on the plus side, it means that now your customers can see your whole catalog, assuming they have access to it. They can see pricing, promotions. They get visibility in a way that they couldn't possibly through a 20-minute conversation with a sales rep, because I don't care how good your sales rep is, they're not going to be able to talk about 2 million products in a 20-minute time frame. So that's great. However, it's also going to bring to light any of the problems that you have, whether it's catalogs not matching, improper SKUs, product data where all it is a single product code and then a name that doesn't make sense to anybody. So it's both a good and a bad. And I'm hoping that in the next 5 years, a lot of those foundational things that I feel like I've continued to see are going to hopefully disappear, because people will have something to lean on to say, all right, the foundational, let's call it 10 things. These will be very easy for me to check off the list.
Marta, is this a plug for our session later this year?
It is. Come see me and Sam.
Oh yeah, tell us. What is it?
Yeah, tell us.
Yeah, so Sam and I are both going to be at B2B eCommerce World Americas in November in Arizona. And so she is going to be leading the conversation with distributors, and I'm going to be leading the conversation with manufacturers. And we're each going to have an hour and a half to talk about key problems, challenges, how to overcome them. We're going to lead interactive conversations. It's not just going to be me and Sam talking at you, I promise, but I think it's going to be fascinating to put us in those groups.
Well, and each of us will have a counterpart. I'll have a counterpart for manufacturing who's then going to say, hey, this is what I need from you guys. And Marta will have a counterpart from distribution. They'll say, hey, this is how I'm trying to serve my customer, and here's how you can help. So I think it's going to be a fantastic conversation. I'm excited for it.
I'm going to have to sit in those sessions for sure.
Please come.
Yes.
I'm really excited. I'm excited because many things, but I feel like it's often like e-commerce for manufacturing and distributors. And it's like one word, right? It's like as if this was like one concept. And at least from like a marketing side, I worked at an SI and they were like, oh yeah, so we're doing e-commerce for manufacturers and distributors and government. I was like, we can't just keep plugging on these like things on top of them. These are all like very distinct projects and priorities and people. But so I'm glad to have like the split tracks where the distributor focus on like experience and customer ownership, and the manufacturer focus on data and brand. Like it's just, they're just really, really different priorities. And like, and e-commerce means sort of entirely different things for both groups. It'll be cool.
Yeah. I will say, just to go back to your question, Sarah, that something that came to my mind was, I don't think there'll be as much hunting and pecking to find the thing that you're looking for in 5 years. I think that will be a thing of the past, which is why data is going to be so critical, because if it's if I go to a website and it says, how can I help you? And I'm just typing whatever is the challenge I'm having, and I expect things to return to me that are relevant to either the thing I own or the thing I need or whatever it is, it's going to play such a critical role. So I think that's going to be a shift. I don't know if it will certainly happen in 5 years. But the other thing that then came to mind was that the makeup in 5 years of the companies that will be operating, I think is going to start shifting. I really think there are so many companies that are so far behind on this digital move that you're going to start seeing consolidation, and the footprint of what's available today just might not be there because they did not heed the call and make the changes in their organizations. Like Sam said, she's still building business cases. She knows of companies building business cases of why you need e-commerce. And we're getting really far past the need for e-commerce and into something that is different than even e-commerce providers have been providing in the last 10, 15, 20 years. So, people really do have to make the change. And I think it's going to look differently if in 5 years. Just too many organizations are not doing anything at this point.
Yeah, I think like Sarah, you were mentioning, I don't think we were recording yet, but you were mentioning this idea of like B2C is, the foundation of what B2B should be, you know what I mean? And you were saying, no, it's backwards. B2B is far more complicated. And I think that similar to what Chris was saying, like we can't just be talking about like e-commerce, go put it in a cart and pay for it with your credit card and be done with it. I think really where I'm hoping we head, we stop saying the word e-commerce because that has completely different connotations and really start talking about like our digital solutions for our customers. Whether you're a manufacturer or a distributor or any other type of B2B type company, like you really need to be thinking about like how do we serve the whole customer journey, and putting something in a cart is one tiny piece of that journey. There's 100 other things before and after that we need to be solutioning for our customers, no matter who they might be specifically. So if we can kind of get away from that kind of language, I think then, some of these ideas of like, how come we're still like trying to get good data, and how come, how come we're still trying to do all this kind of goes away. Because as soon as we start thinking about it as a solution and not like a platform that we go by, I think that schema changes for us. At least that's my hope.
Yeah, I feel like the concept of a web store was kind of a distraction in this like digital transformation path, right? This idea that there was like a product called a web store that you could just put online and that would somehow change your business trajectory.
Well, and with the pandemic happening, it absolutely did change some of those companies who jumped on that. It did change their trajectory, but things are balancing out now. Like we still have people who are like, well, sometimes I want to talk to a person and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just want to go to the web store and sometimes I want you to come visit me. And I still have the quote life cycle to deal with. And so it's still more complicated. We had like you said, a distraction of a web store for about 2 or 3 years in there, and it got real intense. But we have to start paying attention to the rest of the customer journey now too.
I think that's so important that for a long time, people thought that if you just turn on the technology, that's it, that you're done. And what I found to be true is technology is 10% of the problem. I can be successful with almost any technology as long as you get all of your requirements in there. But it's the pieces that we don't talk as much about. So what does the customer service side look like? Oh, well, I'm used to having a sales rep that my customer can call directly. So won't they just call that sales rep? Well, not in an online environment. How do we want to serve customers? Are we going to do an inside sales pool? Are we going to ship orders the same way? Are we going to show customer specific pricing? Do we need to do direct connect technologies like punch out? There's all of these different questions that come into, as you say, Sam, the full customer journey. And I think for a long time, being online was equivalent with turning on a web store. It was almost a commodity.
Yeah.
And in the past 5, maybe 10 years, I think that people have woken up, especially past after the pandemic, because a lot of people did turn on a web store and then realize there's all these other pieces that go to it. I think there's been a real awakening to how much goes into having not just a web store, but a successful e-commerce experience. And how does it leverage your human side, your sales teams? And I've been at conferences, that's one of my favorite topics, because sales teams can make or break your success. And how do you balance these two things together, the digital and the human? Now everybody's talking about AI and what's that going to do? Well, there's still going to be a human component.
Yeah.
And so how do you intelligently bring that into your customer journey?
Yeah, that is a myth I would love to dispel every chance I get. And it's like, I've been a part of several organizations now that are like, well, once we get e-commerce, like we probably won't need our sales team or our customer service team. And they're so wrong. Like I have seen time and time again, we get e-commerce and the sales customer service team like definitely expands, right? Like you start with a couple people and then all of a sudden there's 100 people because you need them. So I hate when people say that because it's just not true. And you still need that. You will always need that human component because we're human.
Yeah, and buyers are human, right? The goal of a web store was to serve the needs and the wants of the buyers, not just to improve margins. And I do think that there's this feeling like, well, we spent all this money on e-commerce, like we need to realize the cost savings quickly or like directly or somehow. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think it gets very short-term thinking.
Yeah, it's definitely a growth strategy, not a cost saving strategy. But it sometimes, when finance gets involved, they're not always willing to accept what the growth can be as a result. And so there becomes this cost component that gets allocated to it. And unfortunately, there's another component, and that's the risk of losing your customers, right? So there's a cost, there's the growth opportunity, but then there's the risk if you do nothing, they leave, and now you're still stuck with nothing and you don't get the growth or any of the shift that could potentially come with the employees internally in the organization. So it's just a channel. That is really what it is. It's a channel. It's a channel to serve your customers, and your customers have needs in all the channels that exist. And you just need to be present when they need that channel, need and want that channel. And some will still feel comfortable with a different channel, but there's a growing population that at least wants to find you in one place. So you got to be there.
I'd like to take that and print it and then put it on my wall so that I can remind people of it, because it was perfectly said. It is a channel. It is a tool. It is there to support people. It is one of many in the tool arsenal, and it's there to serve customers where they want to be served. And absolutely, yes.
Yeah, that's great. Anyone have any other thoughts before we do our sign-offs?
I think there's an opportunity for community here, and I would just, I think this was wonderful. And I would say to all the other women in B2B that are interested in connecting, I think all of us would love to connect with you. And we really do get better with a community. So love the opportunity here, Sarah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for all being here and also being in the jobs that you're in now. I think it's really important. So I'm going to ask you to sign off and let people know how to reach you, and if there's anything they should reach you about, like if there's anything you want to talk about, or if you're looking to mentor people or looking for mentorship or any asks that you have of our community. Yeah, so we'll go in the same order. Sam, do you want to say how people can reach you, what they should reach you about?
Yeah, sure. You can always reach out to me via LinkedIn. And I love, what do I like talking to people about? I really like talking to people about how their technology and their people and their processes are connected so that we can serve our customer, just what we just talked about. And I love getting ideas from other people too. So I have quite a few people that I connect with on a regular basis, so we can kind of compare notes. So if you want to be a part of my compare note weekly, monthly cadence, come reach out to me. And of course, I love also hearing from other people about leadership strategies that are working for you, especially during digital transformation. So I like chatting, so come find me.
Nice. Marta?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I love talking to people about the technology and the sales structure that they're using. Quick plug, I am consulting with a group called DCG. We just launched our B2B benchmark. We launched it yesterday, and so I would be excited if people would jump in and make their voices heard, especially women out there in the industry, to talk about how you view your company roles, et cetera. We're going to be sharing that information publicly in a couple of months, putting together all that great information across the industry for manufacturers and distributors. And I would love to chat with people about getting into conferences. It's been one of the best things in my career. I would love to see more women on stage, participating in panels and doing keynotes. And so if you're nervous about getting out there and what it's like, I have been speaking for 15 years now. So I'm happy to share the good, the bad, the ugly, and what I recommend, because there needs to be many more of us out there getting our voices heard.
Awesome. All right, Chris.
Yes, you can also find me on LinkedIn at Kristina Harrington. Our website is genalpha.com. I also have a podcast. It's called A Broadcast for Manufacturers, and it's myself and two other women, the three broads, and we talk to all types of individuals. So if you're curious about the things that we're curious and want to hear from either people in manufacturing or serving manufacturing, it's a great podcast for that. I love to connect people. I'm a learner by nature, so any opportunity I have to learn from other people. I'm also an advocate for technology and manufacturing. So if I can support somebody in any way and help be that chief evangelist, that's a role that I've kind of taken up in the industry and love to do. So that's it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you again, all of you. This has been such a fun conversation. I wrote down a few notes. The culture of voracious leadership that you talked about, voracious learning, Sam, that you mentioned, I was like, man, that is an ideal. That's so good. And just this idea of setting boundaries and kind of knowing who you are and how you're going to show up in the workplace and how much it's evolved and how the times have just changed since we started off in our respective careers. And Chris, like you said, right, e-commerce is just a channel. Right? it is one of many. So this has been such a fun and pleasant and great conversation to kick off the series. So thank you so much for being here and doing everything you're doing.
Thanks, Sarah, for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for the invitation.
Manufacturers, distributors, leaders in the zone. If you're building B2B, this the podcast throne. The industry's heartbeat, we're setting the tone. Turn insights to actions, it's how empires are grown. We're talking change management, breaking resistance. Strategies so sharp, they redefine persistence. Customer adoption, it's more than retention. It's building a movement, commanding attention. It's the B2B e-commerce show, where the vision is clear and the strategies glow. From the top of the globe, we're the pros who know. Turn the volume up loud, it's time to grow. We bring news, big topics, insights to spark. From the boardroom's glow to the warehouse dark. Digital transformations, the path we're paving. Helping you lead through the change you're facing. This is more than a podcast, it's the industry's voice. Giving you the tools to make the right choice. No fluff, just facts, no hype, just action. The show where solutions are more than a fraction. It's the B2B e-commerce show, where the vision is clear and the strategies glow. From the top of the globe, we're the pros who know. Turn the volume up loud, it's time to grow.
This is your guide to the digital race. Practical advice, no time to waste. So tune in, gear up, and let's own the space. It's the B2B e-commerce show, the industry's base.